Hello, I hope I'm audible right now. An unorthodox location and situation for sure. And since I have this present, I will go simply, let's see, here we go. We'll just go audio for now. And I'm here primarily about standardized testing, specifically SAT and ACT. And let me see if I'm getting this to work. Let's see. All right, that works now. So I'm going to talk to you about what you need to know about the SAT, and we'll go through some sample problems and strategies, and of course, how we can help improve that. There's just a little bit about me. I'm reasonably experienced. I've been doing this for a very long time. Whoever is turning on webcams, yeah, please refrain. But yeah, I've been doing this for over 12 years. And I've been in Dubai since 2012 itself. So if you have any questions about SAT or ACT, feel free to ask. And so the question is, what is the SAT? Well, it is certainly an annoying way to spend 3-4 hours on a Saturday morning, but it's good also to know that it is not a measure of your worth as a human being. It certainly does not measure one's intelligence. I get that a lot from students thinking, it's going to be some sort of measure of your abilities as a student or a predictor of your success in college. It really isn't. It can be used to award aid, and we'll see a little bit more about that soon enough. So it is a good idea to do as well as you can on the SAT, but it does not reflect your grades or predict your grades in any way, okay? The good news is that these tests that can and should be prepared for, and we'll get into those soon enough. And as for that last question on the table, what you learned in high school, well, sort of. I mean, you're going to have to know how to read, of course, and your basic mathematical concepts that you might have learned in high school probably are going to be helpful. But really, the SAT is designed in a way that it's going to be different from what you're used to when it comes to any sort of testing scenario you've had. But before we get into that, let's just talk about how it's scored. How is it scored? Well, you can see the numbers there, 200 to 800 for both math and verbal there. You're probably familiar with those. If you were to take the ACT, the split would be a score of 1 to 36, but for now we're just talking SAT. So 400 to 1600 in total, which you might be familiar with. Let's see. There we go. Now, this is a question I get a lot. What is a good SAT score? And, invariably people will say 1600. And, yes, that's a perfect SAT score. But the real answer to what is a good SAT score is whatever score gets you into the college of your choice. And what that means varies pretty wildly depending on where you're applying. Now, here, that idea is related to what I was mentioning about how it can be used to award aid. Now, these scores here are not scores that get you into these particular schools. These are scores that are the average merit award based on a particular SAT cutoff score, right? So to get into Columbia, your score is probably going to be much lower than 1550 in order to get in. But schools also have a particular cutoff that will let them. Can somebody mute? I'm hearing myself again. Whoever's going on. So the SAT and the ACT, these tests are used often not just to indicate admissions, but also the amount of aid that a school might choose to award. So keep that in mind as well when determining how much time to put in these tests. Well, let's get into the nuts and bolts. What's actually on there? Here, section by section, the first one is going to be reading. 65 minutes, 52 questions, split up over 5 passages. So right off the bat, you have a whole boatload of reading on that Saturday morning, right? Then after the lengthy reading section is that W&L is writing and language. I just call it the grammar section. 35 minutes, 44 questions split over 4 passages of 11 questions each. Typically, in my experience, students tend to have a fair amount of trouble finishing the reading section, comparatively less trouble finishing the grammar. Of course, everybody's different, but that's a general trend that I've noticed. Then come the math sections after a brief break. And notice section 3 there, it says no calculator. So if it's been a while since you had to do multiplication or division by hand, you're going to have to get back into the swing of things. Because while it's a little less than half of the math test, it is a significant portion of it. And then section 4, 55 minutes, much longer, is the calculator section. But those of you who have taken practice tests or even the real thing can attest to the idea that most of those questions on the calculator section, calculator really isn't required. And in fact, relying on a calculator can often be more of a hindrance than an actual help. And then finally, after another brief break, comes the essay. It's completely optional. It's 50 minutes, and you get a separate score that does not affect your 200 to 800 score. And most schools do not require the essay. So we advise students not to worry about the essay unless they're applying to one of those particular schools that's asking for it. Just a brief word on the essay. It's a rhetorical analysis essay in which you'll be given some sort of prompt, like a speech from a politician or something like that, some sort of historical document maybe, and you have to analyze not just what the author is saying, but how he or she is developing an argument, okay? And finally, once that's done, that's 4 hours of your life nearly have passed. Well, probably more than that, considering the time it takes to register and the breaks that you take. Few other few words about the SAT and ACT and why you should take it seriously. Well, it says so right there on the slide. 40% of financial aid comes from the schools themselves via merit-based scholarship dollars. I am one such beneficiary. I went to the University of Arizona on a full ride, probably largely because I had good SAT scores. So it's a very good idea to try to boost that score as much as you can, because that's money in your pocket right there. So as unfair and annoying as the SAT may be, it is possible to prepare for the test, because the SAT is eminently, predictable. Okay, now when all of this crisis, all these crises started happening, a bunch of test dates started getting shuffled and changed. This is currently the word from the SAT that the upcoming date, the upcoming August date will be happening, and they're insisting that if they can't get physical locations opened to administer it, they will open up the test for home testing. So if you're looking to take the SAT soon, you juniors and seniors, if you need to get that test in, then consider applying for the August test, because, well, at least at this stage, it looks like it is going to be happening. Now, another thing is a number of schools have announced that they're making the SAT and the ACT now optional for their applications, which is totally fine. But that still doesn't change the fact that the SAT and the ACT, either one, can definitely help your application, because as established, a good score can mean scholarship money. Now, here you can see the rough calendar here that we recommend for taking the SAT or the ACT. Now, the ACT, its June, July tests are apparently going to be happening as well. So if you are a junior between your grade 11 and grade 12, assuming grade 12 is the year you graduate, depending on what sort of system your school has, we recommend taking it sometime over the summer, either the June, July ACT or the August, September SAT, because, well, a couple reasons. One, you still have time to take it again if you absolutely need to. You think you can boost that score a little bit further, consider taking the test in the fall. But also, we want to make sure that you make that fall test, if you do have to take it, the very last time that you take it, hopefully. Because you want to try to get all those scores in and your application ready by the early bird winter deadlines, because the earlier you submit your application, the better chance you have of getting in and getting that scholarship money. Okay. So you can see our 5-step process for successful results here. It's all preparation. One, content knowledge. It's good to know, the meanings of words. It's good to know the basics of algebra and that sort of thing. But I'd say the bigger part of being good at taking these tests are the strategy and technique. Okay. My specialty isn't teaching math. I mean, yes, I teach math. Yes, I teach grammar, right? I can do that. But my specialty is emphasizing the technique of taking the SAT and knowing what to expect from these tests, and knowing that, if you see certain aspects of particular questions, you know how to tackle it in an efficient and accurate manner. And getting better at that is where the 4th and 5th steps come in, where it's just practice, practice. The more you practice these, the better you are at taking the SAT. I can tell you from experience, because I've been teaching and taking these questions for, well, over 12 years now. And even new questions don't faze me, because the SAT really isn't all that unpredictable. Okay. And with that, you will gain your confidence. And the endurance part, well, my students can attest. I like to give long drills, because taking the SAT really is an endurance test. I'll give long drills, and also we schedule full practice tests, full diagnostic tests, at least 4 of them along the course of our full-length classes, so that not only we can gauge how they're improving, but also just so the students can get used to having to focus for 4 hours at a time, So the SAT requires testing savvy. This is where we can get into thinking about how the SAT frames its questions and thinks about things a little bit differently. Now, yes, of course, we can, if you look at how these are worded, name the quadrilateral. Okay, yeah, you could name it Bob and Sam, or find X. Hey, look, there it is. There's X right there. But the way these questions are worded, you're not going to see on the SAT. The SAT will word things like find the value of X, or which of the following is the most accurate name for this shape, something like that. They'll word things in a way such that there is only one possible answer. Okay. Now, another thing the SAT likes to consider is how predictable people are. First thing I want you to do is just think of a number. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Just any number. Now, usually I do these in a larger group of people, like in the room. I miss those days. I hope they come back. But I usually point to someone and say, hey, give me a number. And usually I get a number, 7, 12, 9, whatever. And every time I ask this, all I ever get are small positive integers. But the only question I asked was, give me a number. You know, you could have been thinking of pi, that's a number. You could have been thinking square root of 3 or negative a billion, right? All of those are numbers. But chances are good that when I asked you think of a number, you thought of a small positive integer. And a high percentage of you probably thought of 7. Why that particular number? I don't know. It's just a popular number. Another thing to think about how predictable people are. Okay, think about the background on the screen that I'm using. Okay, just like what color it is, and then think about you know, that cloth that worms make. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to ask, what do cows drink? Well, if you thought milk, well, no. Cows actually produce milk, but they drink water. But I primed your brain into thinking about milk by highlighting the color white and getting you to think about silk, right? Now, a number of you might have seen through that little ruse, but a lot of you didn't. And that's just the way humans tend to think. And the SAT loves to exploit that kind of predictable thinking. Because, you know, like, think about this. Here's a typical SAT type question. So a store raises the price of an item by 20%, then decreases the new price by 15%. What was the percent change in the price of the item? Well, a number of students will probably look at those numbers and think, okay, something goes up 20, then down 15. I guess it went up 5%. Well, no, because the SAT is not going to have a question that's just, you know, one step of arithmetic. It's going to be more complicated. And here, actually, let me see if I can, I'm sharing my screen, but I have here, let's see, yeah, I'm going to do that. And hopefully you all can see my writing here. Yeah? Okay, good. All right, I hope that's visible for all. So think about it like this. So we have some sort of hypothetical item. Let's just say it costs $100, right? So let's raise the price of that item by 20%. Easy enough. 20% of $100 is $20. So now it's worth $120, right? Now let's decrease that price by 15%. But we're not decreasing it by $15. We're decreasing it by 15%, right? So we need to find 15% of 120, right? And you could do this by hand, you know, 15 over 100 times 120. But those of us who are accustomed to leaving tips in restaurants can somewhat effortlessly say, well, if 120 is our base, 10% would be 12, right? Just move the decimal over. And so 5% would be half that, which is 6. And so 12 and 6, 15% would be 18. So let's decrease it by $18, and we're finally left with 102. So actually, our final price actually increased by 2%, not the 5 that a lot of people might think, okay? And that's just the sort of thing the SAT loves to exploit. Now, let's see. How do I get to the next slide? Forgive me, I will. Okay, here we go. Let's go to here. There we go. Okay. That'll work. So that's just part of the skills that we deal with here. Reading everything carefully. But another thing that I like to emphasize is just that you should take your time, okay? Pace yourself. Now, you can see here in the reading, you have 65 minutes to answer 52 questions, which on average is 75 seconds per question. But I don't want my students worrying about every single passing second because, well, that's going to be a waste of time. You're a lot more likely to make errors if you're worried about the timing and all that sort of stuff. But also, you don't even need to get every single question right in order to do pretty well on the SAT. Because, well, think about it this way. If you want to get, say, a 600 or a 600 equivalent on the reading, which is, well, it's the base scale score would be a 30, but let's ignore all that. Let's just use the 200 to 800 scale score as my example. And if your goal is a 600, you would need about 38 questions right, okay? So a lot of students will want to rush through those 5 passages, try to answer all 52 questions, and invariably they will rush through and misread things. And if their average is reasonably high, they might get 75% of the questions right, and that's a 38, right? But let's say you just slowed down and read everything carefully and confidently answered the questions you got to, but you only got to 4 out of those 5 passages. Well, that means you got 40 to 42 questions right, which already puts you at a 38. And you've ignored the last 10, 11 questions. But since, there's no penalty for guessing, at the very least, you can guess something for the last 10 questions. Law of averages, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 of those questions right. So that even puts you even further ahead of the game, right? So my first piece of advice for all my students really is just slow down and read carefully, okay? Now, similar to, you can see my example here, where actually, let's see, how can I do this a little better? And we can make this bigger so you can see it visually. There we go. Okay. So you can see it just like this, right? If you just slow down, this uses the math as an example here, right? Where you can see that if you take your time, don't necessarily worry about absolutely every question, you'll put yourself ahead of the game, okay? Make sense, I hope? Okay, now let's take a look at some sample questions. And here's where I will be switching to various windows. And so we have here, equation here. Let's see, where's my window? There we go. So we've got those 2 equations here. It says AB is a solution to the system of equations above, and AB does not equal 0. What's the value of 2AB? Okay. Well, here it looks like pretty straightforward algebra. And since it's pretty straightforward algebra, I probably would just do that, because we've got, well, actually, I'll just write the whole thing out as we have it. So 3 times b plus 5 equals 9a plus 15, and a squared equals b. So if a squared equals b, well, why don't we just say b is the same as a squared, right? And, well, we can see a chance to distribute, so we can say 3a squared plus 3 times 5 is 15 equals 9a plus 15, and, well, minus 15 minus 15. And if we divide by a, then we just have 3a equals 9. So here, the algebra gets us there pretty quickly, right? Where a equals 3. So, I guess the answer is a, right? Oh, wait. What's the question asking? Notice they have the answer choice 3 in there because, well, the designers of the test know that a lot of students will get to this point, solve for a, and then see 3 in the answer choices and just choose it. Well, that's just the kind of trap they like to lay. So the question is actually asking, what's the value of 2ab? Well, we have a. Well, a squared equals b, so I guess b is 3 squared, so that's 9. And it's asking for 2 times a times b, right? So we got 6 times 9. Hey, there's 54, right? And notice the other partial answer, 9, is in there too, right? So that just goes to show you, read carefully, okay? Now let's, whoops, there we go. let's take a look at another one here. I'm going to clear my screen. And this time will be blue. Okay, so now this one here. We have xy equals a, and x squared plus y squared equals b. And it's asking which of the following is equivalent to 9b minus 18a. Now this, at least in my mind, looks a little bit more complicated. Now, if you recognize that there's some quadratics involved, then okay, maybe that can help, but that's not necessarily obvious to most. And also this 9b minus 18a is kind of making me nervous. So rather than worry about what looks to be much more complicated algebra than the last one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a technique that we call plugging in. I'm just going to pick my own numbers for x and y, okay? So first numbers that come into my mind, I'll just say x is 2 and y is 3. You can pick whatever numbers you want. I recommend easy, small numbers, and just make sure that your numbers are different for x and y, just to keep everything straight. So if xy is a, then I guess a would be 6, right? And x squared plus y squared is b. Well, x squared, that'd be 2 squared is 4. And y squared, 3 squared is 9. So that's 13. So I guess b is 13, right? So now the question's asking for 9b minus 18a. Well, 9b is 13, right? And then minus 18a is 6. So now, well, no word on whether this is a calculator question. So, well, might as well just find out. 13 times 9, so 27. So we got 117. And then 18 times 6, that's 48. 6 plus 4 is 10. So we need 117 minus 108. So that would give us 9, right? So this right here, we should circle because that's what we call the target value. It's the number that literally answers the question, you know, what's equivalent or what's the value of 9b minus 18a. Now that we have a target, let's check all 4 choices. So A here, you can see it says 3x minus 3y squared. Well, 3x, x is still 2, so 3x is 6, minus 3y, which is 9, and then that's squared, so that's negative 3 squared. Hey, that's 9, but, you know, we're not done. Let's make sure that only one actually gives us that target. So we got 3x, that's still 6, minus 6y, 6 times 3 is 18 squared, so that's negative 12 squared, that'd be 144, not our target, so we know it's not B. And then C, we've got 9x minus 9y, well, 9 times 2, 18, minus 9 times, 9 times y, 9 times 3, so 18 minus 27, so that's 9 squared, so definitely not the 9 that we're looking for. And then D, we have 9 times x, so that's 18 minus 18y, 18 times 3. Well, we can do that by hand if we want. That'd be 54. 54 squared. So some big number squared, that's definitely not going to be 9. Who cares exactly what it is? We just know it's not our target. And we can select A and move on, right? So you can see the difference in strategies and in techniques in just those 2 questions right there, right? In the first one, we saw that the algebra was pretty easy, so we just did the algebra. In this one, I saw, well, I don't really like the algebra. I'm just going to turn it into arithmetic by plugging in like we saw here, okay? Let's take a look at another one. So, just going to clear my screen. So we have Ishan, or whoever. I just ignore the people's names. It never really matters. And actually, let me move this just a little bit so you can see the answer choices. All right, but this person writes an average of 75 pages per week for an online blog. Each article he writes averages 15 pages, and he gets paid a rate per page that averages to $8 per article. If he wishes to increase his pay by $6 per week, which of the following equations could be used to determine how many more pages he should write each week? Now, one thing I tell my students is usually if you see variables in answer choices, that's a good opportunity to plug in like we did in the previous one, right? But here, this is a little bit more involved. And also, well, let's just take this into bite-sized pieces and see what we can eliminate in the choices, if anything at all. Let's just see if we can improve our odds. So the question's asking, we need to determine how many more pages he should write. And he wants to increase his pay by $6. Well, I notice in the choices, everything either equals either 81 or 6. Well, 81 would be what? How much he would want to write, but the question is asking how many more pages he should write. And so it should probably equal how much more money he wants to earn. So he wants his increase to be $6. Well, I'd say the answer would have to involve equals 6. Now the question really is it 8 over 15 times P or 15 over 8 times P? Well, where do the 15 and the 8 come into play? Well, it says each article is 15 pages, and it gets $8 per article. Oh, per. So that's $8 per every single one article, right? But it also says that each article is about 15 pages, so that's $8 per 15 pages. Hey, that's 8 over 15. I think I'm done, right? And that's a lot of the SAT as well, you'll probably notice, where so much of the SAT math is actually a whole bunch of reading, right? How many math tests have you ever taken where it's really this entire paragraph of reading, you know? And we really didn't do much math at all. We just noticed, oh, $8 per 15. I guess that's how he gets paid, right? All right, let's take a look at another one. Here we go. So now we have a couple of inequalities, and it's asking which of the following pairs MN satisfies the system of inequalities above. A couple things to notice here. One, it's asking which of the following, which implies to me that there's probably more than one correct answer, right? And since we do have a couple of inequalities, there probably are technically an infinite number of correct answers, but only one of the 4 that the test decided to give you is actually going to be the right answer. So let's just see. I'm going to write these out just because I always write everything out, as should you when taking the test. So we have our equations here, and it's going to ask, okay, which of the following? There doesn't seem to be any particular order to these, so I'm just going to start with A and say we have -1, -1, and that represents what? M, comma, N, right? Okay, so, well, first I'm going to start with the easier equation, right? M minus N is less than 2. So let's find M minus N. That's -1 minus -1. That's going to be 0. Okay. And since it's so easy, why don't we just see if we can eliminate anything just based on this equation, right? So with B, M minus N, 2 minus 1, well, yeah, that's less than 2. Okay, 3 minus -2, well, minus a -3 plus 2 is 5. Ooh, not less than 2, so we know we can get rid of C just based on that. And then we have M minus N, 4 minus 1 is 3, that's not less than 2. Okay, so even just worrying about only one equation, and the easier one of the 2, no less, we were able to turn the question just into a coin flip. So if we were completely out of time, we could pick A or B and move on, at least having guessed with a higher probability. But here now it's saying we need N to be greater than or equal to 4M minus 3. Okay, so 4M minus 3. So 4 times -1, that's -4, minus 3, that's going to be -7. And our N is -1. Is -1 greater than or equal to -7? Yeah, that's true. So that satisfies them both. And, well, if I'm feeling paranoid, which I often am when it comes to these tests, let's just double check with B that we can get rid of it. So 4M minus 3, 4 times 2 is 8, minus 3 is 5. And now it's saying n has to be greater than that. So is 1 greater than or equal to 5? Well, no, it's not. So I can safely say, okay, A is my only possible answer. Cool. So let's see, we've got another one, another rather lengthy one, which implies to me it's more about reading than about actual math. Let's take this apart and see what's actually important. So this person enjoys seeing movies. It costs her $12.50 to see a movie at the theaters. It costs $2 to stream a movie over the internet. She wants to watch at least 14 movies a week, but she can spend at most $35 a week. Which of the following systems of inequalities represents the situation in terms of A and B, where A is the number of movies she sees in the theater and B is the number of movies she streams online? That is a lot of verbiage there, but let's break it down. You know, when I take these types of tests and see a question like this, like most of this, I pretty much kind of gloss over and know, well, I'm going to have to create some sort of system of equations. It's good to note like what is A and what is B, but let's see that we have, okay, we've got inequalities and we got 35 and 14 and less than and greater than. So let's just see. She wants to watch at least 14 movies a week, right? So at least 14 implies that whatever is going on should be greater than or equal to 14, right? If I have at least $14, I could have 15, you know? So we know we need greater than or equal to 14. So, okay, A says less than, so let's lose that. B says greater than. C says less than or equal to, so we can lose that. And D is also greater than or equal to 14. So yeah, so that A plus B, we know it needs to be greater than. So now, what's the difference between B and D? Well, both have 12.5 A plus 2B, which, you know, corresponds with the cost of theater and internet movies, whatever. Let's just pay attention to what's different, though. And it really is greater than or less than 35. And it says she can spend at most $35 a week. So at most 35 would imply that she's going to be spending less than or equal to $35, which, well, B says greater than, we can lose that. D says less than, so we can do that. Now, how much math was actually involved in that? Practically none, right? But we were able to find the important pieces of information, eliminate stuff as we went, and calmly and confidently selected the right answer, okay? So let's take a look at another one here. At a bakery, this person uses P pounds of flour to make C cakes. P equals C minus 2. P equals C minus 2. When C is greater than 2, how many additional pounds of flour does she need to make each additional cake? Well, we have variables, unknowns related to each other. This feels like the second question we did, where, you know, let's just plug in. So let's just say, so C is greater than 2. Let's say she's making 5 cakes, right? So 5 cakes, which would mean P is 5 minus 2, which would be 3 pounds of flour, right? Okay, but it's asking how many additional pounds does she need for each additional cake. So, well, let's make one additional cake. For 6 cakes, that would be 6 minus 2. That's 4 pounds of flour. So I guess for each additional cake, she needs 1 additional pound of flour, right? From 3 to 4. Now, algebraically, maybe you saw that, but it's a lot easier to see when you just use actual numbers. You can visualize that. Okay, 1 more cake, 1 more pound of flour. There's my proof. Cool? All right. Now we'll take a look at a slightly different one. Track at a local gym was recently renovated so that 1 lap around the track increased in distance from 100 yards to approximately 122 yards. Of the following, what's the closest to the increase in the distance of a single lap in meters? So it's asking for the increase in distance. Well, it went from 100 yards to 122 yards. So I guess the increase is going to be a 22-yard increase. All right. Forgive my weird handwriting. I'm still getting used to this tablet thing. My handwriting is usually much better than that. Anyway, so it's asking us it in meters, but it tells us also here 1 meter is approximately 1.1 yards. So, well, anytime there's unit conversion, I just set up that proportion. So it says 1 meter is 1.1 yards. So we got meters over yards. We need to figure out how many meters is that 22-yard increase. And I just cross multiply 22 equals 1.1x, right? And so the x is going to be 22 over 1.1. Or I usually multiply by 10 just to make it easier on me. 220 over 11. 11 goes into 22 twice, so it must be 20 meters, which, hey, look at that. That's answer choice C. Okay. Now with this one, it's not that the math is particularly difficult, right? Here it's just about organization and pacing, okay? Take your time, make sure you have all the information out in front of you. We know we want to convert 22 yards into meters, and so I kept everything labeled, right? 1 meter, 1.1 yards, x meters, 22 yards, meters over yards equals meters over yards, right? Because the students who get this question wrong usually will flip around what the meters and the yards are. Maybe they'll switch, 1 over 1.1 to 22 over x, and without labeling it, might not be as obvious that you made a mistake there. So keep everything out there in front of you. So that's just a few of my particular teaching approaches. And also, whoops, hang on, go back. Because every question has some sort of point to it, but also every question has a trick that's going on or a pattern that the SAT tends to follow over and over. Like with what's her name going to the movies, you're going to see some sort of question where it's a lengthy explanation and you have to create a system of equations. It might not be about inequalities, but it might be. Either way, take what's important and eliminate stuff as you go, and so apply those techniques as you go. And having someone like me around can certainly help, and that's the point of this slide, that the right coach makes all the difference, okay? As I said, these are not tests like those in school, right? But you can get good at noticing some of the things that I've pointed out in those math questions, right? And noticing those can help you avoid those common mistakes, right? Try not to be too quick to answer, like the first one we saw where, oh, A is 3, that must be the answer. Nope, that's not what the question's asking, right? Or careless errors, right? Like I could have made some sort of mistake when I was multiplying 18 by 6 or whatever it was I was doing, but I had it out in front of me and I wrote out the steps and thought about them one by one, right? And also notice I didn't do any of the work in my head. I, maybe a tiny amount, like the 2 times 3. I just said, okay, 2 times 3 is 6, so write down the 6. But really, I didn't do anything in my head without writing it down, and I made sure to read everything absolutely carefully, right? So, just know that we have all sorts of options for helping you to get ready for the test, okay? We have full-length classes, we have online classes. Hopefully soon we'll be able to open up in-person classes, but regardless, we can offer one help and help additional online materials. The point is, well, your showing up for this webinar here is the first step, because my main point to all of these meetings is just to try to hammer home the point that you shouldn't be taking these tests blind. It's not the kind of test that you should be taking blind because it is so predictable, okay? And also because it is so different from what you're used to. It's not a test of knowledge or skill, or, well, it's a test of skill. It's not a test of knowledge or your abilities as a student. It's just a test of how well you can take that particular test on a Saturday morning. So make sure you're doing something to prepare for it. We have all sorts of more options, right? We have a new SAT self-paced course where we give you full access to our online student center on which there are full like video lessons with people like this. You see in this example, walking you through questions similar to how I did. And you can pace yourself. We give you a recommended syllabus for what lessons you should be doing when, and we also will give you tests along the way to make sure you're progressing well. But if you think you need a little bit more help, we have all sorts of different live online options, either in larger groups or one-on-one sessions. So feel free to ask, feel free to our if you have any questions or our office questions in that regard, okay? But here you can see that regardless of what test or what class you might join, you have all the tools you need, and we want to make sure that you do have all the tools you need to follow along how you're progressing. And this is exactly what this slide here is, where you can see that this particular person's scores are progressively going up. That's nice to see. But also, if you click on each individual test here, it'll pop up every question that you answered, and it'll categorize each question that might, so as to let you know, maybe you're having trouble with coordinate geometry or what have you, so that you know what to focus on in the future. But of course, doing well in college is more than just test scores. It's having a great application overall. And really, the first part of it is having great grades. Now, after my whole spiel about how important the SAT is, you might not expect me to say that, but grades still are the most important part of your application. But if your grades aren't absolutely ideal, you can make up for that with a really good test score. And even if your grades are really good, adding really good test scores can mean additional scholarship money. So test scores are a big part, but the whole thing is also just about having a good application, having good extracurricular activities, good letters of recommendation, essays, and all that stuff that makes for a well-rounded application. So yes, the SAT is a huge and important part of your college application, but it's not the only thing, okay? Yeah, are there any questions? I think if I figure out how, I'll open up the chat. Let's see, oops, what did I do? Oh, there we go. There's the chat window. And let's see. There we go. We'll unshare my screen for now, I think. Yeah, and I can open that up to anybody at all. But yeah, are there any questions at all? You can put them in the chat if you have anything. Yeah, Ritu put our email address there. Anything at all? No? Well, I understand. If there are any other questions, feel free to send that to our office. Or if you have an individual question for me, I'll put my address in the chat. It's darylj@score-plus.com. There, I wrote it there. So if you have any questions specific to me, then feel free to drop me a line. I'd be happy to answer them. But for now, I think we're over for talk about applications. Is that right, Ritu? Yes. Oh, I see. Should we have to take IELTS? Well, the answer to that is probably. It really depends on applying to school, but most schools will require either an IELTS or a TOEFL. If you're applying in North America, they tend to prefer TOEFL to the IELTS. Most schools will require some sort of proof that you can, read, write, and otherwise speak and communicate in English. And usually part of that is taking the IELTS or the TOEFL. But of course, find out from the schools that you're applying to for sure. But yeah, most schools don't use the SAT or an ACT as a replacement for the IELTS. Some do, but most don't. Any other questions at all? No? Okay. Well, I hope this was of help. And thanks for your patience, and I'll hand it over. Yep, you're welcome. I have another class starting soon, so I should I'll talk to you at a later date. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruchika Agarwal, the head counselor at the Princeton Review Score Plus. In today's webinar, in this particular part, we will going to cover up college admissions and the timelines. So we will going to discuss the in-depth understanding of what are the application components which you come across while submitting your college application to any of your dream, safe or reach colleges. We will also look at the application deadlines for fall 2021 intake, and we will discover the roadmap to your college admissions. Now, if may I ask you a question, that if in case a cost of a college or maybe the acceptance rate of the college is not to be considered, then what would be your dream college? If you can put it in your chat that what dream college you would like to get in. Anybody? Just forget about your profile, the acceptance rate of the college, the cost of the college. Just think about that. What is your dream college, and just put it in your chat. Michigan. Okay, great. What else? Come on, anybody else? Come on, anybody else? Okay, none. So what I would like to share the analysis of the, I think somebody has unmuted the mic. I can hear my own voice. Okay, that's great. So we have done an analysis based on the survey the Princeton Review has done, wherein we ask the same questions to our students and parents. And here are the results which we come up to. So when we ask the students what are their dream colleges, considering not attending if acceptance rate or cost is a factor, then most of the students came up to saying that Harvard, Stanford, NYU, Princeton, or MIT. And not much difference in the parents list. They also considered MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and Cornell. So these are the dream colleges which most of the students and parents look for. Now, when we talk about these colleges, these are the selective colleges. So what is selective college? A selective college is the college which gives admits to some of the students, but they reject all other students. So that's what the selective college is. Why are the colleges selective? Because they are having luxury to choose the small class from a large group of quality applicants. They get so many applications on yearly basis, they are having a small class size, because of which they are having a luxury to only select the small group of students. Now let's understand what selectivity is. Is it a number of students who apply? So selectivity is basically number of students who apply and the number of students who actually get into the college. So it's not a measure of the quality of the school or a quality of an education. In fact, it is a measure of how many students apply and how many students the college accepts. That's what the selectivity is. We have considered one selective college to explain it further and to showcase you that how these selective colleges look at your applications and what are the factors they would like to consider. So this is one selective college, which is Yale University, located in New Haven, Connecticut. It's an Ivy League private college, which is a liberal art university founded in 1701, and it adopted the co-education system in 1969. So we'll discuss about Yale University, its factors of considering the application, and many other statistics which are required to understand while applying to Yale University and get admitted there. So let's consider the Yale College class for 2023. So here are a few facts I have already shared, that it's private and co-ed education system. So just look at that, how many undergraduate students are there. It's 1,544 students. And the ratio for 2023 class is absolutely similar, balanced of female and male, which is 50% of females are there and 50% of males which are accepted. When it comes to the admissions, the entrance difficulty is, it is most difficult to get in Yale University, Yale College, because as I mentioned, it's a selective college, gets, you can see 36,844 applications for 2023 class, and they only have 6.2% of acceptance rate. So you can see that how competitive it is to choose the 1,544 undergraduate students from 3,6,844 applications in a single year. Let's look at the deadlines which they offer. We will going to cover in detail that what exactly the deadlines are and how different types of deadlines work. But when we talk about specifically Yale University college or college deadline, so they offer early action deadline, which is a single choice deadline. They do not have early decision deadline, but they do have regular decision deadline. So if you are applying to Yale College, to apply in early action, the deadline is November 1, while if you want to apply in regular decision, the deadline would be January 2. Now let's look at the qualification of the enrolled freshmen. Average GPA, there is no cutoff, but top 10% of students of the class are selected. So you can understand if you are in a class, what are the percentage of the top 10% students? That's what is considered by Yale College. When it comes to the standardized scores, specifically SAT, so they again do not have any cutoff, but if you look at the class size, most of the students are having their SAT math in the range of 710 to 800 and SAT English in 710 to 790. Similar to that, if you consider ACT composite score, so some students must have taken ACT, so it ranges between 32 to 35. So that's how the class size and the academic performance of the students who are being admitted for 2023 class. I would like to share more statistic on different parameters. Now, money matters. It is actually important because most of the students, the private universities which they are applying for, they are not cost effective. You can see the cost of attendance is $76,520, which is a combination of tuition fees, room and board, and average percent of need met here is 100%. So the students do get the scholarship at a maximum percentage. We have also shared here the average freshman award. So most of the students have got $52,300 award. So you can see if you compare the cost tuition fees, it is $55,500, and the average students who have got financial aid got the scholarship of $52,300. So for tuition fees, student hardly has to pay anything and he just have to take care of the living expenditure. When we consider the percentage of the students who receive the financial aid, is 53%. So out of maybe 1,544 students, half or more than half students have received the financial aid in the class of 2023. Now, when we look at the academics, how the academics work in Yale College, so they are having semester system. They have also shared some statistic on what kind of faculties you have. So it is important when you're applying to the university, you check out that the faculties are a full-time faculties or a part-time faculties. And if they are full-time and part-time both, so what is the percentage of full-time faculties? Because if there are more number of full-time faculties, then you are having an opportunity to reach up to your faculties as and when required. So Yale here is having 1,215 faculties. And when we talk about the class size, the regular class size, it's between 2 to 9 students, which is 29%. And most of their classes are between 10 to 19 students, which you can see it's 44% of the classes. And 50 to 99 students, which are more like lecture classes, it's only a 6% of classes are there. So an average class of Yale College is 10 to 9 students in each class. Let's move on to the other statistics, which is campus life and students. So when we talk about the campus life, New Haven population is around what the figure says, and it's a nearest metropolitan area, which is New York City. Now, freshman housing guaranteed because all the freshman students have to stay on campus. So there is a guaranteed housing which is available at Yale College. Now, student and college housing. So 84% of all students basically stay at the campus. Athletic conference, this is another important factor for the students who are having a sports background and they are really looking forward to participate in the teams which Yale College is running and also want to be a part of the sports scholarship. So Yale College is one of the college which is NCAA Division 1, which are having a great funding opportunity from the government to offer it to their sports students. Now, when we talk about the students category, ethnicity of the students from USA, herein you can see the percentage of different students. But if we'll talk about specifically about international students, so 10.7% students are the international students and they are from different 89 countries. Graduate pursuing advanced study directly. There are students who want to pursue their graduate after completing their undergraduate. That's a rate of 20%. So 20% is a quite high rate wherein the students after completing their undergraduate, they do not want to pursue their career, but further want to do a graduation, a graduate program. Now let's have a look at to the important factors which university consider when you are applying, when you're submitting the application in front of them. So it has been categorized in academic and non-academic factors, and it is also listed what is very important for the university is considered or not considered at all. So when you talk about academics, so rigor of secondary school record, it's very important for Yale College. Rigor means what kind of challenges, what kind of courses, course curriculum you have taken. That's very important for Yale College. Class rank is important. We have already discussed. They are looking for top 10% in your class. Academic GPA is very important. Standardized test scores are very important. Application essays and recommendations are very important. When we talk about non-academics, interviews is also a part of Yale College. We will going to discuss all these factors in details and how you can work on it in our upcoming slides. But let's have an understanding of what a selective college is looking for when they are reviewing your application. So extracurricular activities are really important. Sorry, interview is not considered in Yale University. It's considered, but not very important factor to evaluate your application. It's mostly considered to have a round of communication connectivity with the student, which we will discuss later. So extracurricular activities are very important. Talent and ability is important. and your character and personal qualities which you're carrying is very important. On the other hand, if you will talk about first generation, alumni, geographical residence, state residence, religious, racial, these are not the important factors. They can be considered, specifically these geographical residence, state residence, just to have a diversity. They may consider it, but those are not the important factors for Yale College. Volunteering work and work experience is also considered, but it's not as important as the other factors which we have just discussed. Now, level of applicant interest. Yale College is having an open mind wherein they consider the students understanding that they may not have an understanding that what major they want you to pursue. So that's fine, and they do not consider or evaluate your application based on that. So that's the factor when you're applying to Yale University, you have to consider so that you can get the admit from Yale University. So there are different factors. You can go to Google and just type the name of the university and just type the college data against that, and you can access any of the college you want to see and the statistic behind it, so that it can help you shortlist your colleges and have better understanding to complete your applications. Now, how are colleges selective? That's the most important part. We have already discussed in brief. Now we will going to discuss in detail that how the each and every component which you will going to submit in the application, and what are the application components required by the university to select you. So the mapping process specifically is like, this is you. This is your extracurricular activities, your academics, your different life experiences, which you are having a list of things which you are ready to submit it to the university or a college. And this is them. So what they're asking from your experiences, they are having specific requirements. They have main personal statement, supplement essays, 1 or 2. They are having short answers questions. If you'll consider the line at the bottom, you can see GPA, test scores, your course rigor, recommendation letters, your demonstrated interest, interview, video questions, which are optionals, additional information section, and your activity. So the first part which you will going to do is the preliminary sorting. You will going to sort out that what you will going to consider in which part of your application. So maybe what you want to put it in activity list, information section, and why that college. And then you will select what you will going to write in extracurricular activity essay, maybe specific supplement essay, and then short answer or more specific supplement essays. If in case there is video, you will going to sort your profile, your experiences in this format. And then you will going to submit the final application to the university with all the application components which is required by them. Now let's look at one by one that how these application components are important and what best you can do to it. Grades and GPA. We have discussed many times that grades and GPA are very important. Daryl has also shared, and I have shared the Yale statistic with you that how grades and GPA are important. So basically, you have to accept the challenge as much as you can in your high school years, right from 9th grades. What universities look at is your GPA, your cumulative GPA of 9th, 10th, 11th year. They will look at the classes which you have taken. Are the classes like very easygoing classes, or you have actually challenged yourself and there is a rigor in your curriculum? Your grades definitely would be important. You must take challenging classes, but again, after taking challenging classes, you should attain a good GPA. University will going to see that what GPA you scored in the individual years of your high school. If you are having low grades at the first level, first year of your high school, or maybe your grades dipped in 10th or 11th, but if you do well in your next years, then university will going to see that you are improving, and that's important. Last but not the least, we have already discussed ranking amongst the classmates. That's another important factor which would be considered when the college admission officer will be looking at your high school transcripts. These are some courses which students might want to look at. Not all courses are like definitely you should go ahead with this, but to sum up few, it's like what major is there and what courses you can consider is the slide is based on that. So you can see there is law, medicines, accounting, business, forensic sciences, pharmacy. So these are some common subjects which colleges look at, but definitely you have to look at the college requirements specifically before considering that college to apply for. Test scores. Now, test scores are the another important factor. Now, when you're applying to the college, then the test scores which are considered for your applications are your SAT or ACT, your SAT subject test, AP exams if you want to take or if you have taken, and last but not the least are the English proficiency test. So how these colleges use your test scores? It's not always easy to compare the grades of the students attending different high schools. So these tests gives college another measure of your academic skills and your readiness for college level work. Colleges may use these test scores to find out the stronger candidate. They also use it to award scholarship. These tests also help them to place the students for the classes which are appropriate as per their skill level, and they also award college credits. So if to sum up, strong test scores won't guarantee your admission and weak test scores won't necessarily disqualify you, but strong test scores will support the rest of your application, and high scores relatively to other applicants will keep your application in running, particularly at highly selective colleges. Test optional colleges. So nowadays, because of COVID-19 situation, and it was already there in place that some colleges are test optional, but you really have to understand what is test optional. So there are two types of test optional. A test optional colleges let students decide whether they want to submit test scores with their application. Most test optional schools will consider SAT or ACT score if they are submitted, but but focus will be on the other factors. They believe are strong predictors of the school students' potential to succeed in the college. These schools look at your essays, your recommendations, grades, and your coursework more closely than your test scores. The another type of test optional could be a test flexible college. So let students submit other test scores in place of SAT or ACT, such as the student can submit one or more than SAT subject tests. They can submit their IB exams, or if they have taken AP test. So that's what the test optional is. Other than this, you should also understand what is test optional policies, because test optional policies differ from college to college. Some test optional policies come with restrictions. For example, some test optional schools require test scores from out of state or international students, or for students pursuing certain other majors, specific majors. On the other hand, some test optional schools may determine your test optional eligibility using an index calculator from your GPA, test scores, and class rank. So based on your other profile, they may waive off your test scores. Some test optional school will still accept you to submit your test scores for placement in freshman class. So they are okay with if you have not taken the test now, but once you will join the university, you can take the test and submit it to the college. Or they may ask you to take a placement exam. Some colleges are having their own exam, which you can go ahead instead of SAT and take those exams. The other policy could be some test optional schools may ask for additional material instead of test scores, such as they may ask for some academic work, some scientific research, or any additional recommendation letter. So that's what the different test optional policies are. So always check the university website, understand what is test optional for them, what are the test optional policy, and then accordingly consider that college. Other than this, test scores might be required for scholarship. We have already discussed. The school may not ask for test scores for admissions, but they want you to submit the test scores to avail scholarship. And the other, last but not the least, is that your other part of your application will be closely scrutinized. So if the universities, for example, let's suppose nowadays because of COVID-19, University of California has considered it as test optional. But considering University of California as most of the campus well reputed, recognized, and well ranked campuses, if they are not considering test as a mandatory thing which you have to submit to your application, then they will going to look in more deep on the other parts of your application. So you really have to do in other parts of your application components if you are going for the test optional universities like University of California. Now, next is activities and awards. So this is another important factor. All the college application will have an activity list section to fill in. What's an activity list? It's a space of an app in the application where you name and briefly describe your non-academic pursuit. Now, what is the purpose of this activity list? These extracurricular activities can be a great opportunity for you to show how you are self-directing for your passion and your interest. There are so many hours in a day. So seeing how students have involved themselves outside the academic arena is a great way to understanding their potential fit for a university campus. And the admission officer is very much interested in to know that. So take out your time to prepare your activity list. We have already covered how to tips to create the impressive activity list in our previous one of our previous webinar. So you can have a look at to the regarding to that. But to sum up, use stronger verbs, develop better content, and most importantly, demonstrate your skills and values. That's really important. While brainstorming that which activities you should put in your activity list, try to use these questions. What did you do? What problems did you solve? What did you learn? What impact did you have? And how did you connect what you learned to other areas of your study or life? This will help you to come up with a great activity list which will going to demonstrate your skills and your values. Additional information section. This is another section which is there in your most of your applications, college applications. And this additional information section can be used in different ways. So let's have a look to what should you put in the additional information section. So starting with maybe you can, I would say step back and take a look to the information that you have already included in your application. Now see what's missing and what might not make sense and need an explanation. So just evaluate your complete rest of the application and then use this additional information section. You can use important details about your activity that wouldn't fit in your activity list. I can give you an example here. Let's say you did a really cool fundraiser that positively affected both the people you were donating to and your local community. And let's say you decide not to write an extracurricular activity essay on that because you have considered something else. Or maybe that school has not asked you for an extracurricular activity essay. When you look at your activity list description, however, it doesn't capture how incredibly awesome this experience was for everyone. So you might write a short bullet point describing in your additional information section. Health stuff. Did any health issue keep you from getting the best grades, possibly in junior year or sophomore year? If so, and if it isn't already in your main statement, say a few words here. Any potential red flags on your applications? Now, what is red flag? Something in your application that could raise question in the mind of the admission reader. For example, a bad grade you received in science specifically, why you dropped 2 sports last year. Some students do that. Or the fact that you want to major in maths but didn't take maths last year. Anticipate questions the reader may have or offer an explanation that provides context. Did you drop the sports to focus on academics, for example, or maybe you had a complex schedule conflict? So this is the area wherein you can describe all these kind of potential red flags in your application. Circumstances that may have made it difficult for you to get more involved in extracurricular activities, maybe such as working to support your family. I had one student, for example, who had to take bus and metro to go to school, and the commuting almost used to take 1 hour each way. So others have their parents drive them that far. So this means extracurricular activity has been relatively tough to participate in for him. But colleges can't know that if you don't tell them. So make sure you use additional information section to describe such kind of challenges. Physical or learning disability or difference. So physical disability should be diagnosed by the health professional, definitely. You may consider specifying the diagnosis, when you received it, and how long you have navigated the effect overall. You can also talk about family member disability or parent unemployment. If a family member is disabled or has been unable to work and this had an impact on your life or academics, consider including it in a few statements in the additional information section. Unusual grading system. Some schools are having different grading systems in different terms and semester. If you think that you need to explain more for the admission officer to understand how you performed in your high school years, you can talk about the grading system. You can also talk about the unusual classes or online courses or any kind of accomplishment. If in case that accomplishment comes up with some kind of statistic, how important that accomplishment was, wherein you were unable to describe it in the activity list section because of the word limit. Or if there is any other information that simply won't fit in any other part of your common application, then you can put it in your additional information section. Supplement essays. Now, supplement essays are the additional piece of writing required by many of the schools. All Ivy League universities, Harvard, Yale, the top universities like Stanford, MIT, they ask for supplement essay. And they can be just as revealing, as important as your personal statement, which we're going to cover up in the next slide. So, and here is the planning you must do before writing the supplement essays. Now, when it comes to supplement essays, you could have one supplement essay, one or more than one supplement essays, but you really have to plan well before starting up writing your supplement essays. So what you can do. To make it simple, prepare a spreadsheet. That's very important. Essay, tracker sheet, wherein you will list down all the supplement essays for all the universities you're planning to apply. Because if you will create this spreadsheet against which you will put up the university deadline, it will help you to save a lot of time. It will also going to figure it out for you that what are the super essay topics which you may consider. Now, what are super essay topics? Super essay topics are basically, let's take this example. So these are the essays from different universities. So one university is asking for describe a community you belong to and your place within it. Tell us about something that is meaningful to you and why. Or maybe share a perspective you bring or experience you have had to help us understand you better. Now, if you'll consider, if you're writing an essay on community, you can also consider the same essay for the other two of the university supplement essay. So these are the topics which are known as super essays. There are other topics like why major, why this particular major, you can consider that. So there are various topics which you can consider as super topics, and then you will able to figure it out that out of 7, 8, whatever topics you have to write on university application, you will definitely going to see that there would be 2, 3, or maybe 4 super essay topics. So if you're writing one essay, then probably you are covering up next 2, 3 essays. So make sure that you prepare this tracker to plan your supplement essays well, and you do not have to write it again and again on the same similar kind of topic. Now, short answers and additional questions. Short answer questions are required by few of the universities, I would say. For example, USC, Princeton, Columbia, Stanford, Yale, and other bunch of other schools. So while answering these short questions, you have to take care of the following things. So first and foremost is that if they have asked you to describe yourself in 3 to 5 words, which is one of the common short essay question they ask for, so don't use common adjectives. Don't use the top 10 common adjectives which comes up to your mind. They are very generic and they do not reveal anything about you. Adventurous, friendly, outgoing, compassionate, passionate. No. Try to use some other adjectives. Now, when we talk about the short essay question, I can give you a brief understanding of what you can consider or what you should not. So you could consider using the space allotted to explain your answer. So you may get a space of 13 words for an answer that could easily be 1 or 2 words. So consider using it up. In other words, answer why. When if the prompt doesn't ask for it, there are questions which is like uh, what is your favorite food. So just mentioning the food would not be good enough. Instead, if you will mention the detail, for example, an X food whose recipe has been passed for generations. So this kind of example will not only reveal your favorite food, but will also reveal the connect of yours with your family and culture. Don't sound too obvious and try to be specific in the short questions. Don't use common adjectives we have already discussed, or the adjectives which you may have used already in your application. Make sure your adjectives are clearly different and interesting. If you're funny in life, feel free to be funny in your short answers. But if you're not funny, then no need to start here. Try to offer a variety of things you are interested in. That's how you can encounter the short answer questions. Now, coming up to the letter of recommendations, another important factor in your application component. In an ideal world, you would ask someone who teaches you the core subjects like English, maths, science, social studies, who taught you recently, specifically in junior or senior year of your high school, and who knows you really well and actually likes you. So some colleges require or recommend the students submit recommendation for the teachers in certain subject areas. There is some specific requirement asked by some colleges. So be sure you double check that. Overall, think of it this way. It won't help the college get to know you if your recommenders don't know you. So take the necessary steps to get your recommendation submitted well before time. Identify the potential recommenders, your teachers, your coaches, if in case you have worked part-time or internship, your employers. Make a polite request well ahead of time. Give time to your recommenders so that they can do the timely submission from their side. Provide all necessary materials. So if there is a brag sheet in your school, submit that. Give instructions if it is, share the instructions if it is required that they have to follow. And be classy. Try to send friendly reminders to them. And once the application is submitted, don't forget to send the thank you note to them. Here is the important factor which universities will definitely consider while before deciding that they want to give admissions to you, which is demonstrated interest. Now, what is demonstrated interest? Let's simply put in this way. Demonstrated interest is something that many colleges and universities use to track, first thing, that how much you like their school, and more importantly, how likely you are to enroll if the school will provide you the admit. So that's what the demonstrated interest is. And why do schools don't want to know that why the students will going to enroll or not? There are two main factors which I can share with you. So first factor is that schools are having enrollment targets every year. They are having target of 200, 300, or whatever number of students they have to enroll. They have to, so you can think of that if you'll apply multiply that number with the tuition fees, and you will able to find out that what are the other reasons and million of reasons which are required for them to complete these targets. The another factor is the school want to protect their yield. Yield, what is yield? It's basically the percentage of students who decide to enroll at a particular college or university after being accepted. So let's take an example. If Northwestern offers 10 spots to 10 students and all of them accept, that's great from them for them. That means Northwestern is a great place to be and everyone loves Northwestern. But on the other hand, if in case any school is having 10 spots to 10 students and only one student accepts, that's actually bad. Why? Because yield is tied to a school ranking in US News and World Report, which is actually a place where parents and students look at when they decide which college they should apply to. So to make it simple, if their yield gets worse, this can have a negative impact on their ranking. So that's why college really want to understand, you really have to showcase the demonstrated interest. Now, there are few ways in which you can show your demonstrated interest. You can connect with the college staff. You can connect them through social media. Of course, don't bug if in case you are not having specific questions. Build a track record of consistent contact. So if in case you will go to the website, register somewhere in the inquiry form so that you can keep on getting emails on different webinars or events they are organizing, and try to attend few of the webinars which more likely you would like to interest in getting the information from there. Make your case in supplement application essay. Most of the universities, almost 90%, I would say 95% of universities ask you to tell them that why you are applying to them. So specify, show how well you are researched. So once you will research your college, you will able to figure it out that what are they offering, and then you can connect those offering with your interest and your curiosity, and then put that kind of content in your supplement application essays. Apply early. That's another factor which will going to demonstrate your interest, because if you're applying early, that means that is one of the priority college which is there in your list, and you really want to get into those colleges. So that's what the demonstrated interest is. Main personal statement. Most of the common application forms like Common App or Coalition will be having different essay topics, out of which you have to select one essay topic and have to write on them that particular topic, and that essay will go to all the universities which you are applying to that through that common portal. So the common essay main personal statement is really important. So when you're writing the personal statement, consider these following pointers before writing it. Develop your own high school level ideas. Address the core questions like who am I, why I am here, what is unique about me, or what matters to me most. Overall, there is no single correct topic. It's not like any topic will give more weightage to your application. Your essay will be strong as long as you're comfortable and passionate about your idea. and it answers the core 4 questions which I have just shared with you. So feel free to be creative in structure and use vivid descriptions if you want. Make sure the context and logics are inherent in your essays. So for paragraph to paragraph and sentence to sentence, your idea should be clear and flow naturally. Great way to ensure this are using a story arc, following a few major points or focusing on causes and effects. So your common essay must display excellent writing in terms of grammar and sentence structure. It should be well written and clear. What you should not consider is don't try to write about your grades, your test scores, or maybe don't consider cliche topics. Don't talk on religion or politics, your boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe. So, show, don't tell, and be specific and use active voice instead of passive voice. Don't forget to follow the instructions, because whenever you're writing the essays, please understand the topic well, what the question is asking for. Also obey the word limit. There would be a word limit. You can't go beyond that word limit. And I would suggest don't write. Some students, if in case the essay is for 650 words, they are okay with writing that essay in 300 words. Try to use the space provided by the admission applications which you are applying to. So don't go over limit, but try to use maximum space which you are having. Proofread, proofread, proofread. As I said, grammar is very important, spellings are very important. Don't make errors at all. And if you have written it and you have proofreaded it, but you still want somebody else to read, go ahead with that. Someone who can tell you if in case there is any scope of improvement. Interviews. So there are few colleges like Yale, we have seen that they conduct interview, but that's not one of the most important factor for you to get in Yale College. Similar to that, there are many other Ivy League universities who conduct interview. But specifically, interview is not about they will going to drill you on the questions, certain questions, but you can't be like that you don't know about the college. So when you're going for the interview, make sure that you will go through the essay, why X university essay in detail, what are the points which you have covered, do the research on the university more if it is required, gather the information which you must have received from other sources after submitting the application. Also, make a list of maybe 1, 2, or 3 questions which you would like to ask the university. So the university conduct the interview just to have a conversation with you, a friendly conversation with you, asking and understanding your demonstrated interest to know more. Maybe they may have some questions which you may not have answered in your application, or maybe there is something for which they want to know more about it. So it's an opportunity for university and for you as well to have your queries answered and to discuss whatever factors you want to discuss with the university. In the end, it is very important that when you are actually shortlisting your colleges, these are the 4 factors, 4 important factors which you must consider to shortlist your college. Is it academic fit? Isn't it you're applying to the universities which is maybe too high for the GPA which you have, or maybe they are asking for a lower GPA than what you have. So make sure that it is academic fit, because when you are going to the university, you may not like to be relaxed or not under pressure of academics, but would like to compete. So if in case you will go to the universities who is having lesser academic requirement, you may not face that competition. So understand yourself and see how academic fit this university is. Campus culture fit. You are involved in different extracurricular activities and you would like to continue those activities. So if you really have to see that what campus is offering you, Will you able to continue with those activities on the university campus or not? Or is there any other interest which you have, which you likely to gain at university campus? So understand the campus culture. Financial fit. If financial aid is one of the most important factor for you, so consider the universities who are up giving extreme amount of scholarship to international students. Career service fit. After completing your undergraduate, it is very important for you to be placed in different companies. So make sure those universities are having good support, good career services for international students. And if you are basically understanding what your preferences are and then listing those universities, then you will able to shortlist the right set of universities which you can apply. Deadlines. So as we discussed earlier, during Yale University, single choice early action deadline. So there are more specifically, I would say submitting your application within the deadline is the single most important part of your application process. I mean, you have to understand this because you have taken the time to put together an outstanding application. You have completed a brilliant personal essay and you are having impressive letter of recommendation. All these factors would be futile if you do not send your application on time. There are very few hardly colleges which will going to even bother to look at your application if you submit your application after the deadline. So deadlines are important. So most of the colleges are having 4 different types of college application deadlines, and it is actually important for you to understand which one means what and whether or not it applies to you or not. So let's start with maybe regular decision deadline. So this is the most common type of deadline that applies to most applications. Regular decision college application deadlines are typically around the beginning of January. So college send the acceptance letter sometimes in March. So you have until the end of April to accept the offer. So May 1st is known as a college decision day. So by then you have to decide which college you want to go. So when you are applying through regular decision, there is no limit to the number of schools you can apply to. If more than one college accepts you, you can choose which one you want to go to, and you are under no obligation to enroll in any particular college. There are certain pros and cons to apply to regular decision, which you have to understand and then decide that you will going to apply in regular decision or early action or early decision. So when it comes to pros, plenty of time for you to complete the application. You will actually get plenty of time. You can apply to as many colleges as you want, and there would be also time for the test takers. If you have not taken most of your standardized tests in your junior year of high schools and you're still struggling and there is a COVID-19 situation which is happening, so if by any chance you are taking the test in September but unable to score well, and you want to retake the test in upcoming months, so then that would be better. You can consider a regular decision deadline. Now, when it comes to cons of regular decision deadline, maybe a lot to tackle in final month of your senior year with scholarship. So it's too much of responsibility. Your exams may be around the corner, and you also looking for scholarship. That's actually a less time to prepare for college, meaning you have also less time to choose a school. So if you're considering a regular decision. Now let's go ahead with early decision deadline. So early decision deadlines allow students to apply early. The school review these application early, and the student also receive an early response from the college. This is a great option for the applicant who have their hearts set on a one particular college. However, if a college is not first on your list, or if you have any hesitation howsoever, it is not as advisable to apply as an early decision. Because when you apply through an early decision deadline and a college accepts you cannot break your contract. The college contractually obligates you to attend. If you decide to back out because you have changed your mind, most colleges will charge you a steep fine, which could be as much as your full year tuition fees. So the deadline for early decisions are usually somewhere between 1st to 15th November, mostly. Yeah, 1st, 2nd, and 5th November. Now, what are the pros for early decision deadline? This shows schools that you're set on attending there and it's your first choice. So that is what demonstrated interest is. That if the college deadline is binding, you are also committed to. You get a faster response. So when the students must be applying or planning to apply in regular decision, by that time you will be having the decision from your college wherein you have applied for early decision. So if you are declined, you have plenty of time to apply to other colleges. So let's say suppose if you are applying to early decision and the college has accepted you or maybe has declined you, you do not want to accept for scholarship reason or something or the other, and you will be still having regular decision deadlines to apply to other colleges. There can be higher acceptance rate to some of the colleges. Definitely it would be there, as I mentioned, that you are committing yourself. So if in case your profile is suited to that university or college, then there are higher chances that you will get accepted. Now, what are the cons of early decision? It's a binding contract that comes with a huge fees if you try to cancel it. Your application is due sooner, so you have to submit the application in November and you can only apply to one college. I mean, why you have to apply to one college? There is a logical reason. Let's say suppose if you are applying to two colleges in early decision and by chance you get the acceptance from both the colleges, then what? You can't decline any of these colleges because you have applied in early decision. So you can apply to only one college in early decision deadline. Now, what's early action deadline? Sorry. Early action deadlines also allow you to send your application early, but unlike early decision deadlines, it's not binding. You may apply to multiple colleges under early action, thus accept an early response from all colleges that you apply. That's a safer deadline, I would say. There are a couple of difference between early decision and early action. First is that it's not obligate to attend any one particular college. And second is you do not have to pay any deposit while sending your application. You only pay the deposit at the same time as the regular decision applicants are paying. So which means that when you're applying in early action, probably you will be getting decision in the month of January. But when it comes to paying the deposit, you have to pay the deposit along with the students who have applied for regular decision, which is by maximum 1st of May. Early action deadlines are usually set up at the same time as an early decision deadline, which is generally again between 1st November to 15th November. I would say this is the best deadline to apply, but still understanding what are the pros we have already discussed, that not binding, receive response early, and again, there are higher chances of acceptance rate. Most leaving Ivy League universities and few other top colleges, most of the other universities are having early action deadline, not early decision deadline. So for them, early action deadline is wherein the student is actually showing their demonstrated interest. So chances of acceptance becomes higher. The cons are definitely you have to apply sooner, and it's easy to let your financial grades slip when you know you have been accepted. Don't do that, but it happens actually. When the student gets accepted, they become little lenient in their academics, but don't do that, because if you do that, there could be a chances of declining the offer at a later stage. Last but not the least, rolling admission deadline. These are the deadlines in the same as a regular decision deadline kind. The only difference is that colleges that offer rolling admissions do not wait till after the deadlines to send out the acceptance letter. They keep on sending the acceptance letter and then they keep on taking the application. Basically, they keep on evaluating the application till the time their seats are full. So some pros for rolling admission is plenty of time to complete the application. You know quickly if you turn in your application quickly. Some cons are turning it in later would hurt your admission chances. Not all colleges have rolling admission choice. So when you are applying, let's say suppose if the students are applying in April or maybe May, then they will get their decision after 6 to 8 weeks, which will, I mean, they have to wait for too long. So make sure that what universities you're applying for, what are your priority universities, and then accordingly consider your application deadline. Here is the application timeline to share. We have already covered in different deadlines. So your applications opens in the month of August, and you will consider your August, September, and October to prepare all your application components, which we have just discussed. It's 3 months, but please understand it's actually a very less time to collate all the application material. And November will start with your early action and early decision deadlines. As I said, 1st November, 2nd, 5th, or 15th November, it goes till 15th November. Then December, and you can continue with your exams at school, focus on academics, and by January 31st, you will able to hear from the university's decision for the universities you have applied in early action and early decision. January is also the time wherein you can submit your regular decision deadline, and those regular decision deadline, the acceptance will come in the month of March or April. So that's how you have to plan your application and submit your application as per the deadlines which you are interested in. Now, actions, what the roadmap should be for you. 11th graders, keep up your grades. Register for prep, SCT, ACT, SAT subject tests, whatever are left over. You are having time, and try to complete most of your standardized tests in your junior year of high school. If you excel at a subject like physics or history, take that subjects. Continue focusing on 2-3 activities you enjoy and try to move on to the next level and take leadership roles. Start researching for the colleges because that's the right time. You have enough time. Utilize that time. You can see in Yale statistic that what all factors you have to consider. So start researching. Visit some college campuses. In current scenario, it may not be possible, but there's most of the universities, almost all the universities are offering their virtual tours, and there are different websites which are available wherein you can attend those virtual tours to understand the university better. Consider the teachers you might want to consider asking for the letter of recommendation. Now, when it comes to your summer break during your grade 12, request for your high school transcript, consider the topics, create the tracker for the application essay topics, keep prep or retake the SAT or ACT which is required for your intake, finish crafting your college list, done enough of research in your complete 11th year. So now is the time to finalize the university which you want to apply. Create a calendar and track the deadlines and work as per the calendar which you have prepared. Again, visit some colleges campuses. If you have not done the virtual tour then it's the right time to do now. Action items for the senior high school students. So it's, as I mentioned, because you are in 12th grades and you will apply to the university, so don't fall prey to science seniorities. College will going to look at the senior school grades. They can design their offer if something looks alright. If in case they will see that you have not performed as per your last year of your high school years, they may decline your offer. So continue focusing on your academics. Make yourself a candidate for leadership position in activities. So if you are unable to, I mean, take a leadership position in your junior high school year, try to avail it in your 12th grade before submitting your application. Make a request to your letter of for the letter of recommendation. Start your application essays if you have not started yet, and continue visiting the colleges. Continue connecting with them as some way or the other. As we discussed about the demonstrated interest, because colleges keep tracking that what are students, what their demonstrated interest is, and send out your application by the deadline for the earliest one. That's early action, which is the best deadline to go for, unless and until you are having one college wherein if you'll get through, you will going to go into that college, then you can apply in early decision. Questions? Any questions? Let me just check. What's the best time to apply for uni? As I mentioned, that the best time is to apply in early action, because that's not a binding deadline. An early action wherein you will get that's the first lot actually for the seats which are available at college. So you will be having opportunity, a better acceptance rate in early action. And the second important factor is your scholarship. Most of the universities offer scholarships to the students who are applying in early action. So the best time is October, November to complete your application and submit your application. So that's what's the history. Anybody else? Okay, so this is what ma'am. Okay, ma'am, what do I do if my junior year scores weren't as good as my other high school years? Okay, so that's fine. Don't worry about it. As I mentioned, that universities, when they look at your high school transcript, and if somewhere you have fall with your grades, the next important thing is to showcase that universities that you can improve. So if your ninth and 10th grades are really good, but somewhere you messed up in your junior high school year, make sure that your senior high school first year grades are really good, because based on your first year grades, your school counselor will going to share the predicted scores, and it would be really wise to submit. It's an optional thing that you want to submit predicted scores or not. So for you, it would be important that you should submit a better predicted scores which are aligned with the grades which you achieved in your 9th and 10th of your high school years. Any other questions? Okay, so sound good. If in case you have any other further questions, you can always email me. Okay, for university application, do we need to engage consultancies or can be done by yourself? Good question. It's up to you. See, I have shown you what application components are required. If you think that you will able to do well, you will able to submit a strong application, you will able to do the research on the best colleges which fits you best, go ahead on your own. But if in case you want somebody to help you or to guide you at different steps of your application, then there is no harm to engage with any kind of consultancies. Taking a second opinion will always be good. I mean, it's a kind of that you're not going somewhere wrong. Sorry. So next is, Miss, do we have to accept the letter from which university before we apply for scholarship? Could you write the answer in chat, as my speaker is not working? Speaker is not working. You can't hear or what? Miss, do we have to accept the letter for the universities before we apply for scholarship? No, no, not at all. So I'm writing it here, and for other students, you do not have to accept the offer of the university. But in some cases, you may apply for the scholarship to the universities once you are getting admit from that university. So there are certain set of universities wherein you can apply for scholarship further, for department scholarship, different department scholarships which are available once you will receive the admit, but it is not required for you to first accept the offer. Okay, so sounds good. So as I mentioned, you can drop an email at acs@score-plus.com if in case you have any other further questions or you want to have a discussion, one-on-one discussion with me to evaluate your profile and help you understanding what steps you have to take, just feel free to drop an email on this. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Stay safe.